Hi, welcome back to my channel. The lighting is so bad in this video, but I can't really move my phone anywhere because it's on charge. So we're gonna go like this. I wanted to do a video because I saw like a really good video. I can't honestly remember what her channel is called, but she did a video on controlling, like the concept of controlling how other people perceive you. And I was like, and she basically was talking about how you can't really control how other people perceive you. And I was like, that is absolutely true. Get the candles going. I was like, that's absolutely true. You cannot control the way other people see you because it's not in your locus of control. You can what you can control is the way that you present yourself, but you definitely can't control the way other people perceive you because that's going to be through a lens of their own belief system. And I suppose it comes from a level of like, we should realistically all 80%, I think the statistic is that they use, focus on yourself. And if you're not focusing on yourself, like, I think that's what they say, you should spend 80% of your energy focusing on yourself. This is why you get these energy vampires that try and suck all the energy from you and stuff. It's not natural. It's not the natural course of your existence with another person if you're having your energy sucked all the time. So it's best to just ignore them, in my experience. But as I say, if you get someone that's like an energy vampire that like needs all the attention on them, they're going to perceive you in any way that is going to bring attention to them. And it's important, I think, when navigating the world to keep in mind other people's perspective, because otherwise you'll naturally put yourself in this inadequacy box. Like, I think this is definitely something that I worked on, but I feel like I've probably still got belief systems surrounding this from like childhood or whatever, that like, you know, a lot of people will look at other people. I mean, we all look at each other. I used to use this phrase back in the day when I used to make my original videos. I'd talk about moving from a lens of your own trauma. And I think if people have an inadequacy complex within them, or they have like a paranoia complex, or like, you know, some people have like a paranoia complex, and I think if people move with a paranoia complex, they're going to perceive you as a threat, and they're going to perceive you as all the things that they are worried about within themselves and within the world, and it doesn't necessarily make it true. And what I'm seeing as well at the moment is like, I feel like a lot of people, like especially like with parents and stuff that grow up with this, and I'm only mentioning this because I feel like I was like this, and I feel like I had a dad that had like a paranoia complex, and I feel really resentful of people that have a paranoia complex, because I think as a child, and it's quite easy I think as children to try and like be what you think will be accepted as a child to get your needs met. And I think I very much like tried to show up like as overly like not a threat, because I knew that my dad had a paranoia complex, and I would go out of my way not to appear like a threat, like in any way, like not that I was going to be a threat, I'm a child, but you know, like I find it really, I'm really resentful of people, and I have a real like block towards people who have a paranoia complex, because especially unfortunately if it comes paired with things like narcissism, like they have a safe porting complex where they will assume a place in your own life. Like, you know, we're not going to go into narcissism right now, but it can feel very much, you can feel very obligated as a person to move in a way that's not threatening to someone, you know, if they have a specific lens of trauma. And it goes with anything, like, you know, it's easy to have your confidence knocked in certain scenarios, like career scenarios or whatever, if a certain employer has some complex or another, or like for whatever reason doesn't like hire you in a role or whatever, to be like, oh well, I'm like not useful, like I can't do this job or whatever. But like, it's so important to like remind yourself when you have those experiences and those knocks that life will inevitably bring you, to be like, actually I can do that. Like, I'm not saying like ignore limitations, but in my experience, limitations often are just sometimes like you can have limitations obviously, but I think sometimes it's so like, if you find the pathology that suits you as a person and the lifestyle that suits you as a person, obviously, like, you know, people have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's so easy to grow in confidence in basically whatever you're doing if you choose to do something. And I think, yeah, so you can control how people perceive you, of course. Sorry, you can control how you present yourself. And I think I first of all would argue like it's not that important to worry too much about how you're perceived. So I think this would go for anyone, like, to be honest, because, you know, if it's called selfishness, it's called vanity, realistically, and self-focus. If you try and present yourself, you know, if you're too worried about how you present yourself, I've been in this boat, you know, and because it's easy to, I think there's a combination of reasons where people overly focus on themselves, if I'm honest, and focus on their own presentation, and sort of, because one thing is the self-blame complex. I think it's easy to attain a self-blame complex, especially when you're around people that belittle you and you've had an upbringing of belittling, or you feel trapped in a situation where your inner child is forced to assume that it's your fault. I feel a lot of the time when people have a selfishness complex, and a complex where they only focus on themselves and they overly give a fuck about how they present themselves, it's because of that sort of complex, and it's an inability, like it's a lack of growth to understand that like it should be balanced. And I think we can all get out of balance, but I'm always like trying to strive for balance when it comes to dealing with life in general. And I think it's just something to keep in mind, because what I don't want to do is end up going about the world with a mindset where I am feeling less than myself because of other people's inadequacy complexes that are rubbing off on me, and I'm not building myself and keeping myself built in the way that I deserve to because of, you know, X, Y, or Z, the knocks that life will inevitably bring you within life, you know, because, and I think another concept I wanted to touch on, touch on too, but I was like, I'll do them in the same video because they make sense to be put together. What was it?